Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. The kazoo can only mean one thing. Welcome to another installment of the Lume Wars series. Lume Wars episode... Well, I've got a bit of a confession to make. I forgot episode 9. I made episode 8, the last Jody, and then skipped straight to 10. I have since made 11. If anyone has seen The Rise of Skywalker, perhaps they will forgive me for going straight to 10 and glossing over 9. Anyway, what I've done is reorganise the thumbnails. We'll call this one 11 and we'll pretend it never happened. It's just between you and me, okay? Welcome then to Lume Wars episode 11, definitely 11. And what a weird, wacky and wonderful selection of timepieces I have on the table for us all today, including but by no means limited to 2 Lume dialed microbrand divers, a JDM Casio, the venerable Helm Vanuatu, a $5,000 Tudor, and a small Chinese watch that I know absolutely nothing about other than the Lume's really good and that's why it's here. Usual format. 4 quarters, 2 semis, 1 final, and if you've been watching the channel a lot recently, you kind of know where this one is going from pretty early on in the video, I'm sure. Let's flip the camera and meet today's contenders. Alright, first up, it's the Signum Cuda full Lume dial. Now, if you have been watching the channel over the last couple of weeks, perhaps your money is on the Signum. They do 3 different versions of this watch in 3 different shades of Lume, all of them absolutely bonkers. So this is a full Lume dial, BGW9. This was the best of the 3, which is why I retained it. Not much to dislike anyway with these Cudas. I'll leave a link to everything today in the description of the video. $350 US, full titanium, Seiko powered, bonkers Lume. Odds on favourite, let's see who it's taken on in the first quarter. Well, it's taking on another full Lume dial microbrand in the form of this Alkin Model 2. I looked at the Alkin a couple of months ago. Very much less is more in terms of the design, but I really quite like the design. I like the Arabics in the dial, I like the handset, I like the dual crown, inner rotating bezel compressor style. It's a really clean looking watch, this one. And the fact that it's a full Lume dial should at least give the Signum a bit of a run for its money in the quarters. Next up we have a brand new box fresh, still got some stickers on it, Tudor BB Chronograph in my preferred style, the Panda white dial variant. This thing is drop dead gorgeous. This thing belongs to Mr. X. It is kindly on loan to the channel from him. I'm going to use it for a couple of videos over the next few weeks. I have looked at a few Black Bay variants this year so far and haven't exactly been overwhelmed by the Lume, shall we say. Let's hope this chronograph version can change that particular narrative. And it is going head to head with something a little bit special. It is the brand new racing chronograph from Zelos, the Vitesse, again in Panda style. Now, Zelos are well known here and elsewhere for having fantastic Lume applications. I'm not necessarily expecting as much from this one as I would from their dive watches, but that's not to say I'm not expecting big things, because I am. Can it beat the Tudor though? We're about to find out. Okay, next up it is the aforementioned unusual Chinese watch by Merkur. So unusual in fact that I can't even find a model name or model number for this one, so let's just call it Chinese watch by Merkur. I like Merkur as a brand. They do produce some interesting designs, not just your standard AliExpress homages, and this one's here because the Lume, as you'll see in just a minute or two, is very, very good, painted all over the dial and those big hands. But for its sins today, it's taken on my Casio Oceanus T200. I got this one a couple of months ago from Bai. Again, I'll leave links to the Merkur and to the Casio in the description of the video. Perhaps slightly underwhelming at first, Casio used their own neo-bright form of Lume. It's not in your face, but it lasts and it lasts and it lasts. The question today is, can it outlast the Merkur? And in today's fourth quarter-final pairing, it's a couple of more traditional dive watches, the stuff you would normally expect to find in one of these Lume Wars head-to-head-to-head-to-head-to-head-to-heads. It's a Steinhardt Ceramic Premium 500. I looked at this one a few weeks ago and was very impressed by the BGW9 all over the hands, all over the dial, and all over the bezel insert. But let's be honest, it better be good because it's taking on the Helm Vanuatu. I rate the Helm Vanuatu as the single best watch you can buy for under $300 if in fact you can actually buy it. There's a queue as long as your arm. You're looking at a couple of years now for one of these. Worth the wait though, I promise you, if you have the patience. And I've always given Helm big raps for the Lume because the Lume is fantastic. Today we're about to find out just how fantastic. This is Helm's first appearance in any Lume Wars. I'm really excited to see how it gets on against the Steiny. Alright, let's get started, and what a way to kick things off. Two full Lume micro-brand divers. It's the Signum on the left, the Alkin on the right. You probably knew that anyway. Different approaches here. The Alkin going for a slightly negative effect with the indices and the numerals. The Signum going for Lume, Lume, more Lume with a side order of Lume. When we turn the speed up on these two, you can see the hands still glowing very brightly on the Alkin. You can see the entire Signum still glowing very brightly. It simply doesn't look like it's faded at all since I turned the lights off. 20 minutes I always think is about 4 hours of human eye equivalent. Here we are pushing 25 minutes. I'm going to slow these down at 30 minutes and I'm going to make a call. Not difficult to call these two, is it? Hands still glowing on the Alkin. Everything's still glowing on the Signum. It's going to be very, very hard to beat this watch today. Quarter-final 2 then, and it's the battle of the chronographs. About $5 will pick you up one of the Tudors on the left, the Zelos Vitesse on the right launching shortly for about $1,200. Zelos have always gone for multi-tonal Lume, and this one is no different. There's a little bit of orange here, but it's mostly BGW9 on the hands, on the indices, and on that tachymeter bezel scale. Tudor looks like it's going for Superluminova C3 on the indices and that signature snowflake hands. When I speed these two up though, I've been disappointed by Tudors this year in terms of the Lume, and this one I'm afraid is not going to change that particular scenario. The minute hand is just not strong enough. When we get to the end of about half an hour here, again I'm going to slow them down back into 1x speed. The Zelos has done better. It's not outstanding, but you can still see the indices, you can still see the tachymeter scale, and crucially, you can still see the hour and the minute hand. The Tudor, all you can see is that big snowflake hour hand, the circular markers. The minute hand is pretty much gone though. Neither of them are dive watches, I appreciate, so perhaps they're not going to win this competition outright today, but for the money they're charging for that Tudor, I think it should have done better. The Zelos moves into the semis. Quarter-final 3, and it's the Merkur with no name on the left, and the Casio Oceanus T200 on the right. Now you see why I included the Merkur in this video, don't you? That Lume is really, really good. That thing costs $120. I reckon it's up there with anything else I've looked at the price. The Oceanus is a bit more expensive. They come in at $375 to $400 depending on where you end up picking one up from. Casio's Neo Bright is a little underwhelming initially as discussed. It looks like the Merkur is going to take this one quite easily, but let's turn the speed up and see if it actually does. 20 minutes in and the Merkur isn't quite as bright as it was at the start of the test, is it? Whereas the Casio is pretty much as bright as it was at the start of the test. I'm going to run this one for another 20 minutes and then once more I'm going to slow them back down to 1x speed and you can have a look at the two. For $120, that Merkur does not disgrace itself at all. Definitely one of the better Lume applications on a cheap Chinese watch. But check the Casio, a worthy entrant into the semi-finals. I've been wearing this one a lot myself. I know anecdotally the Lume is very strong throughout the night, and it's certainly no match for the Merkur here. Okay, let's finish this one off with a couple of big boys, a couple of traditional Lume Wars combatants in the form of the Steinhardt Ocean Ceramic Premium Vintage Diver 500 or something like that on the left, and the much more simply named Helm Vanuatu on the right. Now, interesting to note, both of these watches just feature printed dials, no applied indices, just several layers of lume painted onto the dials. Normally that's a bit of a disadvantage. Doesn't look like much of a disadvantage here though, does it? I also appreciate the fact that Helm has gone two-tone with those little circular orange dots on the indices and the big slabby blocky hands, both watches obviously having fully lumed bezel inserts as a bit of a bonus. Turn the speed up on these and both performing very strongly after 20 minutes. Keep going for another 20 and both watches still performing very, very strongly. But I reckon you can tell which way this one is going already, can't you? The lume, by virtue of the size of the hands and the size of the indices, is giving a stronger performance, I think, than the Steinhardt. The Steinhardt definitely doesn't embarrass itself, but let's slow this one down just before the hands overlap. Very even fading on both of them, but there's a clear winner here today, and it's the Helm. It moves on to take on the Casio in the second semi-final. But first, it is the first semi-final with the Signum Cuda on the left and the latest lamb to the slaughter, the Zelos Vitesse on the right. Obviously the Vitesse is a racing chronograph, it is not a dive style watch, so the Signum is probably going to be at a bit of an advantage anyway, especially with that full lume dial. When I crank the speed up on these two, again, it just doesn't look like the Signum fades at all. It is outstandingly bright, it is alarmingly bright. I filmed a second 20 minutes just as a courtesy to the Zelos. I'll slow these ones down as the hands approach 11:15. The Zelos has done fine. I'm sure in isolation it will look pretty good, but up against that Signum, it's got absolutely no chance. The Signum moves on to the final. But who will it be facing? Will it be the plucky Casio Oceanus or the mighty Helm Vanuatu? Place your bets now, ladies and gentlemen. Well, yes, that's the way I would have bet as well, quite frankly, but when I turn the speed up on these two, you can see that perhaps the Helm isn't going to have the walkover that I would have anticipated it to have. Honestly, I am going to keep on telling you how good these Casio Oceanus models are until you all go out and buy one. They are not perfect, but the quality you get for the money is really, really good. Both of these watches, frankly, the quality you get for the money is really, really good. This is why I started this channel, to find nuggets like this and to show them to all of you. 20 minutes have passed, 40 minutes have passed. I'm going to slow these two down to 1x speed as they approach the hour. I wouldn't say it was a 50-50, I would say it was a 52-48. I'm going to give this one to the Helm by virtue of the fact that those hands are so big and broad and nicely legible as a consequence. I reckon the hands on the Helm are going to outlast the hands on the Casio, but the indices on the Casio are clearly outlasting the indices on the Helm. But ultimately, when it comes to actually telling the time, it's all about the hands. The Helm moves on, but only just. Good job, Oceanus. Okay, on to the final. Let's be honest, you're not going to be disappointed by either of these watches when you turn out the light. 350 for the Cuda, 285 in a couple of years of your time for one of those Vanuatus, but they are both absolutely outstanding performers for the cash. But only one of them is going to win the prize of Lume Wars 11 today, and I think, hand on heart, we both know which watch it is, don't we? Let's turn the speed up on these two and take it all the way to an hour, and I'll slow them down just as the minute hand approaches midnight. The Helm is still legible. Hands, indices and markings on the bezel insert all still clearly visible. But once again, the Signum is just outrageous. This is the best lume I have seen on any watch at any price over the last 5 years. I'm not sure if Kyle's intention was to make the world's most luminous lume dial watch, but that's what he's done. The Signum Cuda is today's winner. So Signum Cuda, take a bow, drink in your victory today, do whatever it is that watches do when they win an episode of Lume Wars, because you, my friend, have emphatically won this episode of Lume Wars. In fact, this may well be the nail in the coffin of the Lume Wars series. where do I go from here? Seriously, only a tritium dialed watch would improve upon the performance of this one. Or maybe you know different. Is there a watch out there that can outperform this Signum Cuda when it comes to lume on the dial, the hands, the bezel, the bloody everywhere? It's just amazing, I kid you not. If you want to see a little bit more of the Signum Cuda, why not check out the full review? Or if you fancy the losing finalist, why not check out my review of the Titanium Vanuatu? Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again in a future installment of Lume Wars.